Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nuganomics with David Tulis.
This is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving us a couple of minutes of your time. We are at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, the station that suggests that if you love your neighbor, you will buy local. We are prejudiced, very prejudiced people here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Hot News Talk Radio. We are local talk, and my name is David Tulis. We think that near is better than far, that small is better than big, and simple than complex. Already, those 3 points put us dead set against Republicans and Democrats. And in the footnotes where the fleas fight with scimitar and javelin, we have the claim that personal is better than corporate and physical than abstract. We have I'm posting this morning at EastRidgeNewsOnline.com my essay thrown together hastily in the past couple of days about the problem of dyslexia, and inspired by the very courageous movement of Tennessee's Governor Bill Haslam to respond to the crisis in dyslexia, to respond to the so-called crisis in the government sector of functional illiteracy. And my argument is that he is not stepping outside the current paradigm, which holds that dyslexia is a biological problem. That is the presupposition of the state. And that is the presupposition of many people who are concerned about this problem, who are acting in concert against it, who are fighting it, if you will, who are at war with dyslexia, and who are seeking the help of the state. In particular, in a bill that's before the General Assembly, to have screening of students in terms of the dyslexia problem. And I have on the phone with me one of the founders of a group called Decoding Dyslexia in Tennessee. She is a Knoxville mom of 2 children. She works in the nonprofit audio books sector. She's married to a math teacher. And Julya Johnson has a son named David. He's a 4th grader and has dyslexia. Julya, tell us how it is you found that David is a dyslexic person. How did you come to that understanding?
Yeah, well, as far as David himself, we always knew he was smart. From the time he was just 3 years old, he knew every type of dinosaur, every type of, venomous, non-venomous creature out there. He's obsessed with, nature, basically. So we just knew he was going to be smart. So when we started with preschool with him, and he was not picking up on the letters of the alphabet, we knew there was a problem. However, the preschool's only suggestion to do for him was to hold him back a year, even though obviously he knew all of his science and his math and everything else. It was literally the letters of the alphabet that was giving him, the fits and the trouble. So we went on through school, and he continued to struggle. They kept telling me, his teachers would tell me that he would catch up, and it was all children learn to read at different times, and he would eventually catch up. Well, by 2nd grade, he was still having extreme issues. He was basically illiterate in 2nd grade. And we were doing all we knew to do. I was reading to him. That's what everything says. Read to your child, and they'll learn to read. So anyway, a homeschool mother, actually, she's my good friend. Her name's Allison. And I was speaking with her. Her child has autism, so she's kind of in the special needs field a little bit. And she said, have you ever looked into dyslexia? And I said, no. I said, he doesn't write things backwards. That's what I thought. I said, he doesn't write things backwards. And she said, you really need to look into it. And she gave me very explicit directions of how to have him tested and evaluated. He immediately qualified, and that has just started this whole journey. It has really opened our world.
Now, what is the focus of Decoding Dyslexia in Tennessee? It's a nonprofit organization run by volunteers. And
nonprofit. Yeah, we're not nonprofit. We are actually grassroots.
Okay, grassroots, not incorporated.
Nope. Yeah, we're unincorporated. Okay. Yeah, we call ourselves a movement and not an organization.
Okay.
And what we are is we're moms, basically. There are some dads in the group, but we're mostly moms. And we are moms of children who struggle to read. And these include public school, private school, homeschool. We have a lot of homeschool parents in the group. But we're children who struggle to read, and we want to raise an awareness because we see out there other children who are struggling, and their parents don't know why, and their parents don't have the answers. And it's just so sad to see kids who cannot read when there are answers out there, and there are ways that you can help these kids. So that's really our purpose.
Explain how dyslexia comes about, Julia Johnson.
Yeah,
how does it happen?
It is Yale University actually has done a lot of research into this. Also, Boston University has done a lot of research into this. But some of it is fairly new research. And what they're doing now, there was this whole debate about whether dyslexia is genetic, biological, or if it's from not being taught appropriately. And so what they've done is these researchers is they've had students and adults read passages, and as they read, they scan their brains in fMRI brain scans. And they found that people with dyslexia use the right hemisphere of their brain when they're reading, and people without dyslexia use the left hemisphere. And they've actually found that your right side is much less efficient. So people with dyslexia, it is biologically based. However, they also found that if you start teaching these children with a phonemic awareness, explicit, multisensory, structured approach, which we do have a lot of programs out there like that, that it will actually fire up those brain neurons, and it will get them to start using that left hemisphere more. Dyslexia never goes away. It's always going to be a little bit slower and a little bit more labored type of reading. You know, it's going to be a person they may not necessarily love to read when they're grown up. They may not, read, just absorb books all the time. But you can change those brain structures with a multisensory phonics-based approach. And whole language just will not do that. If you do whole language, they're just not going to learn to read.
Well, my listeners,
I think you know a little bit of those. Yeah.
Julia Johnson of Knoxville, my listeners, you're throwing my listeners just a little bit. Explain what whole word means, and explain, I guess, in contrast, what phonics based, and then you had also the phrase multisensory approach phonics. What does that mean? How are these two remedies contrast?
Whole language came about several years ago, and it is basically, from my understanding of whole language, and I'm just a parent, I'm just kind of run up on these different things, but from my understanding of what whole language is, I guess, researchers, I don't know who came up with it. Someone came up with this idea that if children could recognize words by sight, common words that they normally read, that they'll pick up reading and learn how to read just from looking at the words. That at least is my understanding of it. That maybe works for maybe 20% of kids. I mean, some kids that are just natural readers will pick up on it that way, but most kids need to be taught the sounds of words, like C says k or s, and A says ah, and T says t, to be able to put that together to spell cat. Most kids need to be taught the sounds in the words and how you blend them together, just like we used to with, see, spot, run, those old-timey ways that they used to teach reading. And so that is your phonics base. Now, you can go a little step further for your dyslexic child, and they actually have extreme trouble with knowing that C says k. And so what we do for them, what science has proven works for them, is if you can have them draw it in the air or write it in, shaving cream, some way that they're feeling it in a multisensory way. They see it, they touch it, they feel it, they say it out loud, they hear it. You need all those senses going at once. And if you can get all that going at once, it fires those neurons in their brain that actually gets that left hemisphere working a little bit more. And they've shown this on fMRI brain scans, which is fascinating if you start digging into the science to see how this works. So that's kind of your three differences, and I hope that made sense. Well,
as I understand from what you said, Julia Johnson, that the whole word makes the word a picture. Is that fair to say, that you look at the word not from sounds, but as an image? Right.
Yeah, that's my understanding of whole language and whole word.
Well, let me ask you about, just on that one proposed remedy. What if you have a word like constitution or anticipation? How does a whole word reader deal with a longer term like that, that's legal or medical or philosophical?
Exactly.
How can that system work?
From my perspective, a dyslexic reader cannot. I mean, they just cannot. They will shut down on a word like that. As a matter of fact, if they see a word like constitution and they have been taught in a whole word way, a lot of times they'll guess. And they may guess something completely wrong. They may guess construction. And then that completely throws off the meaning of the passage they're trying to read.
Well, now... You mentioned
like whole language and decoding dyslexia.
All right. Now you mentioned, though, Julia Johnson, the alternative to the look-say method. The look-say, my understanding is that dyslexia and that our functional illiteracy crisis comes from the use of the look-say method from the times of the 1930s. Now the the alternative is the phonics-based system. How does phonics work in a nutshell, Julia?
Yeah, sure. Phonics is definitely an alternative. Phonics, I personally like a lot. Phonics would teach you the sounds in the words and how they blend together. Like when you say constitution, you're actually going to break up the sounds. So you would look at the phoneme and the graphemes, which I know are different, things. They're kind of in our world, but take it apart by the syllables, and you could say cons. So the child would know that C at the beginning of the word says k, unless it's followed by E, I, or Y. They learn these kind of phonics rules, which a lot of us didn't learn growing up. I mean, I grew up in school in the 80s and 90s, and I think we were taught whole language. I didn't learn all this. So now that I'm trying to help my own son, I'm learning all this, and it's all making a lot more sense. But we break it up for them. So he would learn that C says k, O says ah, and then he would put it all together, cons, and then he would do tuition. So we would break up the word like that instead of learning it by shape.
So in the phonics,
for a dyslexic child, it is a little bit more than just the fact that they've been taught wrong. The fact that they are taught the whole language is a problem, but dyslexia itself even needs that multisensory component to make those neurons fire. So so it's just a little bit more in depth, and that's why it's classified as a learning disability.
So your suggestion then, Julia Johnson of Knoxville, you are one of the founders of the Decoding Dyslexia in TN group. It's a volunteer group. Your understanding is that phonics is helpful because if you're taught to read by phonics, you can eventually absorb very long words, very complicated words, because you hear them, right? You're always hearing the words as you read. The word constitution, you hear your eye as it crosses the letters makes the word in your mind's ear. You hear that word, and as your eye flies over it, you hear the whole thing in a gulp, and you can read it and understand it and move on to the next word. And so reading is an extension of hearing effectively, right?
Exactly. That is exactly right. We call that phonological awareness. And a lot of that has to do with the auditory processing. And, people always thought in the past, a lot of times people thought dyslexia was visual. They thought that the kids were seeing things backwards, but they actually found out that they're struggling to process the sounds. So it has a lot more to do with hearing. Sometimes they will reverse, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that they also struggle with left and right. And so when they're struggling with left and right, obviously a B or a D could go either way. So that's why you're seeing that. But it's really much more to do with the sound and the hearing of those sounds than it is to do with the visual processing.
Well, Julie Johnson, tell my listener about the bill that's before the House and the Senate. I think it's the same bill before each body. What is it proposed to do? And you mentioned a moment ago that it touches on screening. What will the screening do, and what benefit will it bring to the parents who use the public school? Yeah,
definitely. We'll touch on that. It actually is not adding an additional test. I know some parents are really anti-test, and I am too. I don't love the test. It's not adding an additional one. Our children are already screened in kindergarten through second grade for reading and math to see if they're struggling in them. And so what we are proposing is just on that same screening to have a test that does specifically identify the kids who are struggling with the sounds and the words. And of course, those are the kids that are at risk for dyslexia. They may not necessarily have it, but they're at risk. And so we want the parents to be notified, because a lot of my issue with my son and why he got so far behind is that I had no idea that this could be more than just a developmental delay. I kept being told that he'll catch up and that all kids learn at different times. Well, it turns out that's not necessarily true. You really need to catch them in kindergarten or second grade, or else they're going to be 2 years behind and just really treading water trying to catch up. So we want these kids to be identified early, kindergarten, second grade. And then we would like the parents to be notified. That is in the bill. Parents should be notified because we feel like parents are the key to everything, and parents should know everything going on in their child's education. And then we also want our kids to be placed into a proper reading program, not a whole language program, but an explicit phonemic awareness program that will address these issues of struggling to hear the sounds in words. So that's really the heart of the bill. It also does ask for an advisory council. And part of that is that we're trying to work with Governor Haslam to see if he will fund this. We hope that he will. We weren't involved with his reading initiative, but we do hope that he will specifically address that, these are the issues that are going on. And this does have a lot to do with our literacy issues in some of our schools.
You're confident, Julia Johnson, that public schools in Tennessee really do want children to learn how to read, that they are not somehow involved in a conspiracy to make them functionally literate so that they will be dependent or pliable, leadable, civic-minded people. That's not your view at all, that genuinely you believe schools want children to be able to read.
Yeah, I really don't have, I've never actually thought about anything like that. My husband is a teacher. He's a high school teacher. And I know he doesn't have any kind of, kind of motivation like that. He just wants to help kids learn math. So I don't really have any thoughts on that specifically. My whole goal is just to get more kids reading, and to make sure parents know if there's an issue that it's not necessarily going to always fix itself by just waiting. Because that's what I was always told. It was kindergarten. I mean, I knew something was on the pre-K through second grade, and all that we're told is wait and see. They'll catch up. Just wait. It'll click overnight. You'll be shocked. And I just want parents to know that is not always the case, and that there are things that they can do now that will help their child.
Julia, how can my listener find out more about your group's efforts, particularly as they might be in effect here in the Chattanooga area?
Yeah, that would be fabulous. We do have a website, and it is a WordPress website. So it is Decoding Dyslexia. The reason why we say decoding is exactly what you were talking about earlier, David, when you were talking about the Constitution and how you break it apart like that. That is decoding. That is what it's called. So we call it Decoding Dyslexia because that's what we're wanting our kids to learn, is how to decode words. So it's Decoding Dyslexia TN, and then it's .wordpress.com. You can find us there. We're also on Facebook, and we're very active on Facebook.
All right, again, the address. If you would like to find
us on Facebook, just search Facebook for Decoding Dyslexia TN, and we will come up. And like we said, we're not just public school. We have a ton of homeschool parents and resources, and we would just love to have anyone interested in the cause to come join us.
Okay, that website again is decodingdyslexiatn.wordpress.com. Is that right?
Right, and the reason it's .wordpress is because we are grassroots. We have no money, so right. That's a free site. But yeah, that's where we are.
Well, this is David Tulis, and we're talking with a mom out of Knoxville who is part of the Decoding Dyslexia in TN, a group concerned about the phenomenon of functional illiteracy, and specifically its roots in dyslexia, which these moms and some of the dads involved believe is a biological origin. My own argument today at EastRidgeNewsOnline.com. You'll have to read it to see. It's at EastRidgeNewsOnline.com. And the headline, let me just tease you, is Dyslexia Remains Public Policy in Read to Be Ready program. And I'm suggesting that the policy of our state is not literacy, but functional illiteracy. It's kind of a scary suggestion, but I make it based on the history of the reading problem and the solution to the reading problem that was founded in the 1830s by a man named Gallaudet, who ran the School for the Deaf and Dumb. And his solution for teaching reading to those who couldn't hear was the look-say method. And that is the method that is used and has been used in public education for the past 70 years or so, and which has brought about a crisis. So there is a difference here. My guest says that dyslexia is based in biology, and that's shown by brain scans of dyslexic people compared to those brain scans of those who are not dyslexic. And there is a difference there. But my own analysis, as far as I can take it, is that it is a policy. It is a policy change, a policy decision, and it goes back to the behaviorist school of science back in the 1920s and 30s that had a very low view of the individual. They were collectivists and behaviorists. They viewed man as a collective animal and an animal, and so their tendency in the control mechanisms that they were creating was to have a pliable people, with illiteracy being a danger. If you have too many literate people, you have a danger to the system, the industrial commercial system that they run, their state-oriented progressive system as well. And so it's important that people not be too independent, not be too literate. Julia, thanks so much for joining me here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to come on, and listeners, check us out. Thank you.
Great. We are at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, and we believe in local economy and the free market. We believe in local solutions. The reading solution is not the school, okay? The reading problem is in the school, especially if that school is run by the state, and especially if the cartel of educrats run things with their handles in the back and their tax dole making it all work for you. I'm a skeptic. I am a skeptic, and my wife and I we taught 4 children to read from a simple reader, a $20 reader. You can find out which reader that is if you go to Nuganomics.com. A little bit later this morning, I'll be posting my version of that story. That's Nuganomics.com, the website for the man who matters. What is the key to teaching reading? What is the key? It's a book, and the cover is red. Red. And I am glad that you're giving me a couple of minutes of your time. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio right here. Local economy and the free markets. My name is David Tulis. I do thank you for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time. Check out my bow tie on YouTube at the Hot News Talk Radio channel. We are live on YouTube every weekday from 9 to 11. I've got some things I want you to hear. Hang on.